The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, everybody, and good evening here from the Little Bear Meditation Center. We have 7 little bears outside, which is about appropriate, but we haven't named one of them Polaris yet. This morning we worked on the science of triangles, and we worked on quite a deep old commentary presentation regarding the first ray line of force, the bear, the lion, the Saturn, and then the Lord of the world. We got that far. I think we went through it all, and then each time when we do the science of triangles, we'll attack this, the next 2 of the old commentary. Well, they're presented in very arcane language, but it's very, very interesting. So every part of the Tibetan's writing, I would like to say, aspects every other part of it. So it's a great sphere of light, and there's no way that you can learn something from it without also learning something about other factors that are related to the factor you're learning about. So we will continue the best we possibly can. Olivia Tuya and I invite you weekly to this glamour, we call it doggy, dissipation of glamour initiative. And I think we're on number 88 now, 88 or 89. I'll know in just a minute. And so let's just have a little alignment before we get into our reading, which is a brand new subject in more detail. And it's the subject of illusion, which he still calls a glamour on the mental plane. He's using it in a larger sense, that term. Usually it's a very specific term that Maya relates to the etheric physical, glamour to the emotional, and illusion to the mental, but it's not always that way. As I've said, sometimes these terms are used in a manner which is comprehensive, and each one of them covers somehow the other 2. And let's see, I just want to, kind of welcome you all here. I can only do this once, so hi, Alex, Alexandra, Anne, Anna, Anne-Marie, Annette, Bianca, Carl, Catherine, Deborah, Frida, Gregory, Joan, Joanne, John, Yopie, Karen, Keith, Laura, Margot, Marianne, Martha, another Martha. Oh, wait a second. Margot, Marianne, Martha, Olivia, Stacia, Susan, Suzanne, and Tuya, of course, she's here, Yvonne Wegener, and Zenaidi. And over on the other side, we have BL and Michael Stacy helping me make sure that I'm not going to talk too long without my microphone on. I'll do my best to do that, and I'm putting Tuya over on the other side. All right, so let's have a brief alignment. And in this silence, we feel our relationship in consciousness. It really is an overcoming of space and time as we normally measure it. We're like one, increasingly like one consciousness growing out of one being. There is only one being, of course, but that's easily said and not easily realized. And our purpose is to understand all the major distortions of human thinking, feeling, and action, which prevent a correct working out of the plan on the well, on the physical plane and really on all the 18 subplanes. Above that level, there's not so much trouble. The plan reaches through, but here we have all these distortions, and we want to learn how to clear our consciousness so that we at least do not contribute to the distortions, and further, that we can do something of an occult nature to help clear them up. And I must say, anybody who's looking at the political scene these days knows how much clearing needs to be done. People can be very, very earnest about their limited point of view, and so we have to help ourselves and others see through that limited point of view. Limitation of mind has so much to do with illusion. Now, this is reading number 28, and I just wanted to, he gets into the definition of illusion, but I'm just going to remind us of three definitions he gave before. Glamour, he says, has often been regarded as a curious attempt of what are called the black forces to deceive and hoodwink well-meaning aspirants. Very self-centered point of view. Many find people are almost flattered when they are up against some aspect of glamour, feeling that their demonstration of discipline has been so good that the black forces are interested sufficiently to attempt to hinder their fine work. I mean, you get the the irony behind all this, and a little bit of a bite to attempt to hinder their fine work by submerging them, see how self-centered, in clouds of glamour. Nothing could be further from the truth. That idea is itself part of the glamour of the present time and has its roots in human pride and satisfaction. You know, we're all perhaps a lot more self-centered than we think we are, and it's unfortunate, but one day we discover what the story really is. It's hard to get off the center of your own stage and become truly, in Leonian terms, the relinquished point. Then earlier definition of Maya is often regarded as being of the same nature as the concept promulgated by the Christian Scientists that there is no such thing as matter. I once, with full enthusiasm, had a debate with a Christian scientist. It was almost 50 years ago. Well, it didn't end well. It didn't end anywhere, you know, because there's a certain dogma that one just sticks to. We were asked to regard the entire world of phenomena as Maya, the entire world of phenomena, and to believe that its existence is simply an error of mortal mind and a form of autosuggestion or self-hypnotism. Well, that would rank all of the appearances of endless universes as utter futility, wouldn't it? Because every universe is phenomenal compared to the supra-noumenal worlds or the utterly noumenal worlds post and pre-universe. Through this induced belief, we force ourselves into a state of mind which recognizes, notice that, we force ourselves into a state of mind. See, you can just about make your mind believe anything you want to, which shows the astral body is still in charge, which recognizes that the tangible and objective are only figments of a man's imaginative mind. Well, maybe they are sort of figments of the absolute deity as it chooses what sort of algorithm it will use to work out its next universe, but it's very real, you know. If you get run over by an elephant, you know it. So this in turn is likewise a travesty of reality. Then he gets to illusion, which I think is preparatory to what we want to think about a little bit this time. We'll try to see if we can get up to the point so that next time we can cover the 7 major types of illusion. So previously he told us illusion is regarded rather the same way, only as we define it, at least in this context, we lay the emphasis upon the finiteness of man's mind. Now, out of that finiteness comes all kinds of problems because we misinterpret even good energies and ideas that we receive in an inappropriate way due to the limitations of our mind. Those things are real, but we misinterpret them. The world of phenomena is not denied the way it would be in Christian Science, but we regard the mind as misinterpreting it and as refusing to see it as it is in reality. And it's the glamours that are so crystallized and the desire orientation that is part of the refusal to see reality and to stick to these very, very limited ways of interpreting the impressions that we have. And he'll tell us what the cures are. That's very interesting. When it won't be this time, but next time he'll deal with the 7 types of illusion and what the cure is in each case. So we consider this misinterpretation as constituting the great illusion. If we could really see the universe the way it was, we wouldn't have the great illusion. But from another point of view, in a way, the whole universe compared to absoluteness is a great illusion, though a necessary and forever repeated illusion. So now we're ready to go to the idea of glamour on the mental plane, and he calls it illusion. And notice indeed that he's still calling it glamour. And you know, if you've studied Hindu philosophy, you know that everything, including glamour and Maya, are all called by the name of Maya in a large and general sense, illusion as well. So there's the great illusion covering all of these, there's the great glamour covering all of these, and there's the great Mahamaya covering all of these. The point is, we don't get it right, we don't get it straight, we don't understand, and we lead our lives in a state of bewilderment and relative darkness when we could be doing much better. So now we go on with the material that we're going to discuss this time, and take notes and see what it is you might like to discuss or mention something in relation to as we go through the material. Maybe your interpretation is different than mine, and that's okay, and we'll discuss that. And just welcome to all the new people who came aboard just now, but I can't go through your names at the moment. All right, I do that in the beginning. So in this section of our discussion, we shall give less time to the consideration of illusion than we shall to that of glamour or of Maya. Why is that? Because people are not yet generally mentally focused. Maybe only, if you consider that, maybe my estimation is that maybe 10 or 15% of the people in incarnation, well, at least the people who are going through the incarnation process, are from the moon chain, which would have a lot to do with cultivating mentality, going through the mistakes of mentality, and falling into illusion. There's a lot of Earth humanity that still has not overcome the astral polarization. So that's why he's not going to spend as long with it, because humanity really isn't there yet. But disciples and aspirants are becoming more and more mentally focused and are approaching the point where illusion is a factor. So we're giving less time than we shall to glamour. Okay, illusion is not met squarely, faced, and overcome, until a man has done the following. So we're going to look at this, and remember, we haven't even met glamour face to face. We haven't even overcome glamour. Our first step actually is going to be overcoming a kind of Maya, which prevents good ideas from working out well on the physical plane. Then we'll deal with glamour and learn to stand in spiritual being, and with the mind held steady in the light, use the technique of light and project our beam using the logical discerning mind and the light of the soul, and only then will we deal with the dispelling of illusion, because that will require the intuition of the soul, which is a reflection of the intuition of the Buddhic plane. And we're not there yet, obviously, but in the sixth root race we will be, and maybe a lot of illusion can be overcome during the coming Aquarian age. So anyway, we do not meet illusion squarely and face it and overcome it until what? Until man has shifted the focus of his consciousness onto the mental plane. Now, I assume that anybody staying with Master DK for a reasonable amount of time and not getting overwhelmed by his mental approach is doing this, is shifting the consciousness onto the mental plane, which doesn't mean that the person doesn't have a well-endowed, sensitive astral body that can be used in the right sort of way to project the feeling of love, if you will. But still, it's not yet mental polarization. Now, we've got to get the difference between mental focus and mental polarization. And I want you probably know what it is, but that only between the second initiation and the third initiation does TDI, does mental polarization occur. And believe it or not, he talks about this when he's discussing the sixth initiation, interestingly enough. And then once you have that real mental polarization, the light of the soul is really shining through your mind, and you can take the Syrian path of development. It doesn't mean you're going to Sirius, but all of our initiations are under the auspices of Sirius. So let's be very discriminating and careful about how we use the term mental polarization. Mental focus is what we're talking about here. Okay, so you can't deal with illusion until, to a certain extent, you're a thinker. Now, the true thinker with a capital T is the soul. But we have to know, are we primarily the feeler, and are we reacting emotionally to things before are we the victim of kama manas, or have we learned how to separate the thinking, logical, rational mind out of emotional response? And then the next thing we have to do is we have to work definitely at the task of intelligent service. Now, you know how it is. You get swept by a feeling, you want to help people. You may not even know what it's all about. And it's an emotional response, and you rush into some kind of service, and you may not do much good because you haven't really thought it through and seen what the issues really are. So he talks about intelligent service, not just feeling service. Though really, what can I say here? I would say this, that heartfelt, intelligent service is what is needed. But you have to have at least a mental focus to do that, because service, says the Tibetan, is very hard. It's much harder, so much time and so much interest in order to serve. And I think he must know, and Sanat Kumara is giving up a huge possibility because of his great compassion and determination to help. He stands at his post until the last weary pilgrim has found his way home. So those of us who are engaged in service, we do have to count the cost, because it's not just like some people, they give a lot of money and then everybody applauds for them and they receive all of that, all of those good vibes they have served. It's much more than that. Okay, so intelligent service, we can't deal with illusion until we are engaged in the task of intelligent service. And the next one, number, I think, C, until made his soul alignment consciously and easily and firmly established his technique of contact. That's a big demand, We talk about the soul all the time, but how many of us are walking around truly as soul-infused personalities, at least partially so, having made soul alignment consciously and that without a huge struggle and firmly, so that it doesn't get interrupted by every little thing, established our technique of soul contact. So think about that. We can't deal with illusion squarely until soul contact is really made. Why is that? Because through the soul will come the intuition from the Buddhic plane, which will allow us to dispel illusion. We dissipate glamour, we devitalize Maya, we dissipate glamour, we dispel illusion. So the intuition must help from the soul and the Buddhic plane. And then the fourth requirement, well, take the first initiation. All right, can we even call ourselves a disciple until we've taken the first initiation? Well, now so many of us assume, hey, we've taken the first initiation, and maybe we have. He says, every true aspirant has taken the first initiation, but there is a very strong throat center and heart center stimulation involved in that first initiation. And the throat center stimulation allows you to really begin to think with the mind held steady in the light. And therefore you can really begin with the process of overcoming illusion. But let us not sell the first initiation short. Everybody thinks, oh yeah, I've taken that, and I've taken that, and I've taken that. And if I'm feeling calm and sober, I say, in the matter of your initiations, always subtract 1. If I'm feeling gloomy on that day, I say subtract 2. And maybe that's closer to the truth for a lot of people. So these are the requirements when confronting glamour, when confronting illusion squarely. You're focused on the mental plane, you're engaged in intelligent service, you can really easily make a firm soul alignment, and you've taken the first initiation. Now we have, one day, maybe pretty soon, Tuya and I seem to have some kind of television station going here. We'll deal with initiation. I have a lot of wonderful compilations. I've already discussed this, the first, second, and third initiation, but to discuss it with you, with your questions and all of that, might be a good thing for us all to do. All right, now let's go on. The word illusion is frequently lightly used. See, he's a man for precision of words. He says, read more carefully all the time. The word illusion is frequently lightly used to signify lack of knowledge, unsettled opinions, glamour even, or I say, delusion when you're talking about glamour. Delusion is something that really makes you act. Maybe you're not going to act on your illusions, but when you have delusions, you really do. Unsettled opinion, glamour, misunderstandings, psychic bewilderment, and the dominance of the lower psychic powers and many other forms of the world illusion. And let's just say, yes, all of these are illusory in a way, but he means something much more specific, and he wants us to understand how he is using the word illusion. But the time has come, he says, when the word must be used with a developed, discriminating sense, and when the disciple must know clearly and comprehend the nature of that, now notice these words, phenomenal miasma in which humanity moves. Somehow on the lower 18 subplanes, which in the tarot are ruled by the moon, which is in a way the mother of illusion, we encounter this miasma, which, you just cannot see and understand things as they are. So maybe above the level of the 18 lower subplanes, here's Tuya's chart on this. 18 subplanes comes the higher worlds above the dotted line, and we might begin to say with reservation that noumena, not phenomena, begin here and get ever clearer and more causative as we rise onto the higher aspects of the cosmic physical plane, and then on and on. But we're dealing with what's normally called the phenomenal worlds, which the Buddha says, look, detach yourself from the phenomenal worlds, from the lower 18 subplanes. 18 sums to the number 9, which is having everything to do with the material element and the third ray, and with the moon, and with the assumption that the form is real, whereas the form, well, it's actual, but it's not real. I'll pause on that for a moment. The form is actual, it is perceived, but it is not real. It is an effect. Only that which is the true and ultimate causeless cause is ultimately real. So anyway, yeah, we've got to understand this more clearly and comprehend the nature of that phenomenal miasma in which all of us are moving all the time, and we don't even know it because we just take it for granted. You only, when you wake up from a dream, you know a dream was a dream, but maybe not before you wake up. For the purposes of clarity, and in order to distinguish more definitely and effectively between the forms of illusion in which the soul moves. Now that's kind of interesting, and I want to say in a way, especially the soul in, okay, well, I have that correct, but I won't bother now. Especially the soul in incarnation, which is our consciousness as it is immersed in the lower 18 subplanes. So he's calling that the soul. Effectively, between the forms of illusion in which the soul moves and from which it, and that's who we are, must liberate itself, ourselves, it will be necessary to separate the great illusion in its various aspects into its component parts in time and space, which is, of course, a great illusion. The illusion of time. Let's see, time and space. Time and space. Oh, forget it. Time and space. Sometimes I forget my code words. All right. Now let's see. I have to erase this. Getting a little too cute here. Okay, I'll pull that out and go backwards. Okay. Okay, here we go. Okay, the illusion of, and this, okay. Right, time and space. And this I attempted partially to do when I defined the words Maya, glamour, and illusion, and the dweller on the threshold, and that's how I began this session, going back to those definitions that he had. So we're going to have to look at this whole misinterpretation of universal actuality, universal reality, and we're going to see that it is divided into component parts, and there are different kinds of illusion, and remembering that the illusion of time and space is one of the major illusions, and yet we're also immersed in it. We consider it real. Okay, so I want you to keep very clearly in your minds these distinctions and to study with care the tabulation earlier given to you, and I did that except for the dweller. We'll get into the dweller more. Now he's going to define illusion in a new way. So just test yourself, try to see somehow in a detached manner the mental condition in which you live and your usual interpretations, and see if you suffer from illusion. Now, I can assure you, you do, and so do I. He says the only way, the only way to rid ourselves of illusion is to pass the 9th initiation. And that means that even the masters themselves have very high forms of illusion, but they are still illusions. So that's an amazing idea, that when we finally leave the necessity of returning to the cosmic physical plane, that's when we get rid of what we normally call illusion. Okay, it's a big job. Now, here's the definition. Illusion, for our purposes, can be understood to signify, think about this, the reaction of the undisciplined mind to the newly contacted world of ideas. So, you know, there are ideas within the soul. There are ideas within the abstract mind, but the true ideas begin once we reach the Buddhic plane and beyond. Now, it doesn't mean you can't necessarily contact these levels, but what does your mind do when you do contact these high levels? What kind of understanding do you bring to them? What kind of formulation can you make out of them? So the world of ideas, remember, ideas are living beings. In a certain sense, every one of us is an idea. In another sense, even the God of the universe, the universal logos, is an idea. So ideas are non-corporeal beings, giving form and substance to the lower types of beings, let's just say. And all these worlds of form are shaped by ideas as the molding factor. So I'll repeat it. Illusion, just think of it in relation to yourself and what's going on around you. Illusion, for our purposes, can be understood to signify the reaction of the undisciplined mind. Is your mind disciplined? Is my mind disciplined? Remember what the hierarchy is called, the organization of organized, it's called Society of Organized and Illumined Minds. That's one of the definitions of hierarchy. Now, organization, illumination sounds like discipline to me, and it sounds like so many of us have a narrow mind, relatively speaking, and an undisciplined mind that we bring to interpretation of high things, and therefore we mess up the interpretation. The reaction of the undisciplined mind to the newly contacted world of ideas. So, you know, when people have an aversion to deep study, I say, look, if you don't study deeply, if you don't assimilate what's been given, then when it comes to contacting the high energies, you're not going to know what they're all about, and you're going to create a distortion. Okay, so this contact opens up from the moment a man has aligned himself and brought the lower nature into touch with the higher. So let's just say here, even, that's the illusion of time and space. I don't want that. I'm sorry. All right. If I don't get my bracket correct, that's what happens. So this starts even with preliminary soul alignment. Ideas come to us from the plane of intuition. That's the beginning. On the level of the cosmic ethers, the formative beings we call ideas begin to descend. They live there, and they have to descend at the right time. That doesn't mean that ideas exist only on the Buddhic plane. They exist here, and beyond, in the mind of God, on the cosmic mental plane, and so forth. There's all kinds of greater and greater beings who are ideas. But let's just say at the very beginning, a true idea and not just an abstract thought, begins at the second level of the spiritual triad, the Buddhic plane. Okay, so ideas come to us from the plane of intuition and through the soul. Interestingly enough, in a secondary manner, the soul illumines the plane of mind and the plane of the intuition. Now, remember what he said. What is the true soul? The true ego is the spiritual triad. So when he says soul, he's not just talking about this structure we call the causal body. This is the true soul, the higher soul. This is the sword which has to be put in the scabbard, which is the vehicle for soul. It is actually the egoic lotus. It's not the highest soul by any means. The true ego, he says, is the spiritual triad. And if you want to get beyond that, even monad has soul and on. It's a universal principle. Okay, soul is a universal principle. Now, excuse me, the soul illumines the higher soul, the plane of mind, and the plane of intuition. A lower thing cannot illuminate a higher thing, okay? But considering the whole spiritual triad, yes, then the plane of intuition can be illuminated so that they stand revealed to each other. The mind and the intuition stand revealed to each other, and their mutual relationship then becomes apparent. The mind is supposed to be the receiver of ideas, eventually, if we have a sensitive enough mind. And what we normally call the soul is the mediator between the world of ideas and the world of our concrete mind. The mind of the man, which is slowly becoming the center of his consciousness and the major reality of his existence, becomes aware of this new and undiscovered world of ideas, not just thoughts, ideas, living, inspiring contact with these higher formative beings, seizes upon some idea or group of ideas, and here's the problem, and endeavors to make them his own. This is in the beginning. At first, with the majority of people, and especially with the average mystical type, you know, under the planet. Oh, I did that again, didn't I? I didn't mean to do that. There, now I've got it. Okay, so let's just say under the planet Neptune, which has a reputation for creating blurred boundaries and vagueness, at first with the majority of people, and especially with the average mystical type, you know, Neptune the mystic, Uranus the occultist, the appreciation of ideas is vague and nebulous. You've talked to some mystical people, they have not trained the mind yet. They say things based upon their impressions, but what really is there of real value? And frequently is arrived at from a second-hand angle. And, you know, here's the interesting thing, and you might, the second-hand angle, yeah. Okay, so the abstract mind presents second-hand ideas. Now that sounds like an outrageous thing to say, but ideas descend as formless, relatively formless, from the Buddhic plane, and they enter the highest level of the mental plane where they are clothed by the abstract mind in a certain type of matter, which is formal compared to what they emerged from. So that's the second hand. I mean, a lot of people have great thoughts that are created on the abstract levels of the mind, but they're not. It's not the same as receiving an inspiring idea. You don't even know what to do with it. Suddenly, there it is, and you have to find the proper clothing for this idea. And that's where all the mistakes begin to be made, okay? The illumination coming through, now this is the average person in the beginning, the illumination coming through the medium of the feebly established soul contact, how strong is ours, seems to the unaccustomed neophyte, the inexperienced neophyte, to be of supreme wonder and a vital moment. In other words, inexperience is speaking and interpreting. How long have we been on the path? DK writes to his students, oh, you've been on the path for 5 lives. Oh, you've been on the path for 2 lives. Only in the last life were you an accepted disciple. Oh, this is your first life as an accepted disciple. So we stand at various places on the path, and we have various kinds of experience. And the people who are just around the first initiation, let's say, it's just wonderful. Everything they get is wonderful because they just don't have the experience with it from before. The ideas contacted appear to him of great marvel and superbly unusual, watch out, and vitally needed by humanity, so they get very inspired with an idea which is just a tiny little piece of something much, much bigger, but for them it's everything. But, and here's the problem, and this is where the illusion can really come in, but the mind is still self-centered. It's I and my idea, my great inspiration, my this, my that. Read the law of repulse under the 6th ray, and you'll see how that word, my vision, my idea, my thought, whatever is used to indicate self-centeredness. The mind is still self-centered, and the contact feeble, weak, and the alignment comes and goes. It's uncertain. So the personality still plays too important a role in all this consideration. So you may be contacting something, yes, but you don't have the equipment to deal with it. And this is how illusion is going to be produced. The ideas, therefore, are only dimly sensed. The true nature of the idea is, as St. Paul would say, it's through a glass darkly. But the uniqueness of the experience in the realized content of the mind of the disciple leads him into deep realms of illusion, or deep into the realm of illusion. So, this is unique to me. This is amazing. Nobody else has this. This is my idea. This is the whole thing, not just part of something much, much bigger. All of this is going to lead into illusion because of the limitations of the mind. The idea or ideas which he has contacted are, if he could but realize, only a fragment of a greater whole. So, let's be humble about this and have that adjusted sense of right proportion. What we get is not the whole world. We just get a little piece. That which he brings to the interpretation, this is an important statement, is inadequate. An inadequate mind to interpret what has impressed him. The idea which has emerged in his consciousness through the partial awakening of his intuition, not the whole thing, that's a big job and a long job, will be distorted in its descent into brain consciousness in several ways. So we're talking about here the distortion of ideas in the beginning. And, it's almost inevitable, and I'm sure we've all been through it, and I'm sure we're going through it. You look at how Master DK interprets things, and then you say, okay, let me explain that in my own words and then what comes out, you know. So we're going to distort these high impressions called ideas in the beginning. And we have to get used to really dealing with them in the right way. That which he brings to the materializing of the idea, his mind, and to its transformation into a practical working scheme is as yet wholly unsuitable. So the contact may be high, but there's no way to really bring it down in an accurate manner. And he just doesn't have the experience, and he doesn't have the mental breadth and accuracy and all the rest of it. The equipment does not suffice for accuracy. The ways in which this distortion and this stepping down of the idea takes place might be outlined for you as follows. And this is about the passage of an idea from the plane of the intuition to the brain. Now, remember, we make a big deal about the alignment called soul, mind, brain. Now, we're talking about an alignment which is true soul or intuition, soul in the causal body, mind, brain. Okay, so let's just look at this. The idea is seen by the mind, held steady in the light of the soul, at least long enough to get the idea, if this can happen. Now, how many of us truly can hold the mind steady in the light of the soul? It descends to the higher levels of the mental plane and there clothes itself with the substance of those levels. Now, it didn't have that clothing when it was part of the Buddhic repository. It still remains an abstraction. Because why an abstraction? Because we're talking about the abstract mind, clothing the idea at first, and a definite concrete form on the mental plane has not been really built yet. So it still remains an abstraction from the angle of the lower mind. It's above the lower mind. And this point should be carefully noted by the would-be intuitive. Can you train yourself to be an intuitive? Yes, you can. And some of the groups that are going to come out in the future, and they're already appearing, are training the intuition. They may get it confused with psychism, but okay, at least it's on the right road. The soul throws its light upward and outward, and you know, the idea which has hit the plane of mind, the idea nebulous and faint, emerges more clearly, I will say, emerges more clearly into the consciousness of man. It stands revealed much as an object stands revealed when the bright beam of a powerful searchlight is thrown upon it. The mind, endeavoring to remain in constant, steady, conscious contact, notice those words, they are really demanding, constant, steady, conscious contact with the soul, seeing into the higher world through the medium of the soul's wide-opened eye. So that's either the eye of the soul or that's the soul considered as an eye, registers the idea with increasing clarity. Okay, so this is the clarification of the idea with the help of the soul and the mind held steady in the light will then have some kind of form which is increasingly tangible and understood. Number 4, the idea revealed becomes an ideal to the attentive mind. Now notice how the mind has to be involved to produce an ideal, not just the emotional body. Okay, so the mind is involved in idealism, sometimes a very rigid mind at that. The idea revealed becomes then an ideal to the attentive mind, and eventually, how long? Something to be desired and materialized. You really, the astral body grips the concretized ideal, and says, I want this to happen. The thought form making faculty of the mind then comes into play, and the mind stuff becomes actuated by the energy of the idea, vitalized by the recognition of the soul and the idea. This is all part of the white magical process, right? And the idea then takes the first real step towards embodiment, because it's descending into the phenomenal worlds, which is where a lot of problem happens. The idea as an ideal is descending into the phenomenal worlds. And here's a great statement. An ideal is only an embodied idea. Every once in a while, a really strong, clear statement comes along, and this is one of them. An ideal is only an embodied idea. Now, embodied in what way? The idea is coming from the cosmic ethers. Now, there is matter on the cosmic ethers, but we do not consider embodiment to occur until we hit the lower 21 subplanes, and especially the lower 18 subplanes. So it's a heavier, denser type of matter that is involved in embodiment. These are the first steps towards materialization. Embodiment becomes possible. Thus, illusion is produced. Now, that's interesting. Embodiment and illusion, these two go together. These two go together. Embodiment and illusion. Okay, right. Now, number 5. Now, obviously, look, we're just taking a quick run through these steps, but they have to be really studied. And you have to look at your own creative process. And if you've ever had truly an idea, which was not just a misnamed thought, sometimes we get a bright idea, we get a thought, and we say, oh, I've got a great idea, but it's not really an idea. It's already secondhand. Somebody has worked on it and produced a kind of clothing which is not found in the pure idea itself. So embodiment becomes possible, thus is illusion produced. Now, here's the problem. Distortion now sets in, and this is brought about by various causes. Now, I'm trying to see whether oh boy. Well, yeah, I'm going to plow ahead. Please be with me. Distortion now sets in, because next time I want to deal with the 7 types of illusion. Okay, now let's just say the pure idea is clothed in various ways which cover it, disguise it, distort it, separate it off into different parts. Let's just say there's one great truth of Christianity, and there's 450 different sects of Christianity, and you can get into that with Buddhism and all the rest. There's a great principal truth, and then the mind of man gets busy and divides it all up and creates these illusory fragments of the original truth. Okay, so what begins to happen? The ray type of the ego, that's your soul, colors the man's interpretation of the idea. It might be above a ray qualification, but the ray coloring sets in. And color, remember, is a limitation. Color is not just that wonderful thing that we all love. It is a partiality of the wholeness of white light. It colors the emerging thought form. Symbolically speaking, the pure light is changed into colored light. Now, we like certain colors and we wear them and all that, but the pure white light contains the whole thing. The idea is then clothed with color. It's a 4th ray thing that happens there, and thereby the first veil descends. What we're talking about here is the descent of the obscuring, hiding, separating veils upon the original idea, and hence illusion misinterpretation by the limited equipment is setting in. Okay, next. The point in evolution which the man has reached has also its effect, because, different quality of mind will interpret in different ways. Different quality of mind interprets with greater or lesser accuracy. Plus the quality of the integration existing between the three aspects of the personality and the alignment established between soul, mind, brain. Is it weak? Is it strong? Is it really in alignment? Is one of the vehicles causing a problem? How is this idea going to get down into the physical brain if there's weakness in the alignment or lack of alignment or some weak point, some weak link in the chain? Okay, so this being necessarily imperfect, this alignment between soul, mind, and brain produces indefiniteness of outline and consequently of the final form. So, it's not easy. You get touched by something high, but your own equipment is going to distort it, veil it, hide it, separate it, color it, and it doesn't come down in the original form. And so therefore we have, and these are the issues, imperfect integration of the personality. Maybe all of us can attest to that. Indefiniteness of the proposed thought form, because we just don't have the sharp, accurate mind to really bring it down and clothe it properly without somehow making it vague. The wrong material, mental material. Now that'll be a whole Davic study one day. From what level do you clothe an idea so that it really is represented properly and not distorted? The wrong material consequently attracted for the building of a thought form, because if you build with the wrong material, just like building a house, it's like the three little pigs and the wolf. You build out of straw, then you build out of wood, and the wicked wolf, big bad wolf, blows the house down. Then you build out of bricks, and you can't blow the house down. So we have to build correctly. A shifting focus of attention owing to the dimness of the seen ideal is not held firmly and really clearly and consistently. Okay, so that has to do with our weakness in holding and the rapport of the mind with in general, with the sense data is just not stable. Now, in the beginning, things are not stable. That's just how it is. When you're learning something, it's not going to be immediately stable unless you have a lot of experience from the past. So, it's like a beginner is a little wobbly in learning how to do things, and will be a little wobbly in learning how to bring down an idea in an undistorted manner, and then thus avoid illusion. Going on. The quality of the development of the mental body of the disciple produces the next veiling of an idea, as it is called. If you have an inadequate mind to interpret a big idea, you're just not going to be able to do it. The idea has become changed through ray coloring of the soul, and now is still more distorting. A still more distorting change is brought about by the ray type of the mental body itself. And I always go looking for this quote, which may be and usually is different to that of the soul. So when you interpret your ray chart, it's very rare that the soul ray and the ray of the mind are the same. They're usually different. That's what he's saying. Maybe in a couple of those, second ray minds, there were a couple of them that had the same soul ray, but the ray type of the mental body may be, and usually is, different to the soul ray. They're both on the same plane, but the higher three planes determine the soul ray and the lower four the ray of the mental body. So keep that in mind when you are interpreting your ray chart. Anyway, The ray of the mind is another veil. And these are the second steps towards materialization. The form of the embodiment is qualified, thus illusion is produced. Now that's very interesting. So basically he's telling us illusion is the limitation placed upon an idea. Illusion is the limitation placed upon an idea by the equipment of the interpreter. Okay, that just, coming to me as a summation is the limitation, and let's just get that word correctly, somehow start again, sorry, limitation, placed upon an idea by the, and I'm going to put a word in here, qualifying equipment of the interpreter. So is your mind sharp? Is your mind accurate? Is your mind broad? Is your mind accurate? Maybe I said that. When you confront this, whoa, what was that? And then you start interpreting it, a very trained, accurate mind that is sensitive to how you may be coloring things is needed to bring the idea down in the proper state that really represents it. Now look, give you an idea, a thought. There is a first ray interpretation of Agni Yoga. Master Moria has presented it. But no true second ray interpretation of Agni Yoga at which the Tibetan hints is yet existing. It's Agni Yoga, but there's going to be a first ray interpretation, a second ray interpretation, and who knows what else. The ray of the interpreter is qualifying the major state of the idea as it descends toward the brain and toward true embodiment. Okay. Now I know I really pushed that forward, and maybe we would have stopped earlier, but I had the idea to go on to illusion, demonstrating in 7 ways in our next session. Now, in the Moria Federation, we do have a 2-month section on the study of illusion. So, we try to go into these things in depth and detail as much as may be possible. And I must always say, some people like to learn a lot through webinars and broadcasts, and that's excellent. But nothing is going to take the place of your own very hard and attentive study of the material so that you can truly assimilate it and learn it by heart and make it your own. So meditation, study, and service. All right. So we've gone through that, and that's as far as I'm going to go right now. You'll probably be very happy about that. And now is the time to open up the floor. We've seen the problem in receiving ideas and how distortion comes in, and how ideals are embodiments of ideas. And we've seen that there can be very faint registration of ideas, but the soul helps make them brighter. The eye of the soul throws light upon the descending idea, and that even as we begin to approach the first initiation and that particular period of reversing the wheel and orienting towards the higher worlds, some dim contact with the world of ideas can come in, but our danger is that we will, because of our finite mind and our limitations, we will misinterpret what is impressed upon us. And that's why studying Master DK is so important. I mean, let's say a lot of people say, when they contact the soul, they don't know the language. They say, God talked to me. Well, it's kind of true as it all descends, but it was really the solar angel or angel of the presence sending a significant dream. All of these are the technicalities which deep study allows you to understand. And for other people, they'll say, oh, I got a message from my higher power. Well, that may be true. What are the technicalities? God spoke to me. What are the technicalities? The technicalities are important for an occultist, not just the nebulous feeling into something, which is also important, shouldn't be abandoned, but the occult mind under Uranus is very important to cultivate. All right. Now, I'm looking at this list of survivors of that.
Olivia has her hand up, Michael.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
And then there's also several questions in the question thing
yes,
when you get to it.
I see. I do see that. Okay, hi, Olivia. Okay, go ahead.
Hi. Well, regarding glamour and illusion, so a lot of this is glamour, but I do want to say something about what's going on right now in the United States. It's just such a dramatic example of glamour and illusion, and also democracy and the search for truth. DK says that the battle for democracy will be fought out in the U.S. So it seems to be going on. It's quite a battle. And right now, many of you may know, we have this battle that's been going on over a Supreme Court nominee by President Trump. And he's been accused of sexual assault. So we had a testimony yesterday by this woman who I went to school with him, Dr. Christine Blasey Ford, and she had said he sexually assaulted her. She passed the lie detector test, and she asked for the FBI to investigate, which would help sort out facts, and help people. The senators will have to vote on him in this search for truth. So yesterday she testified. The Republicans who hold the majority on this committee refused to bring in the FBI to investigate. Brett Kavanaugh, the nominee, testified. They both seem to be convincing to their supporters. And so senators now are left with this idea of who's telling the truth. He said, she said. And yet, it's always been historically the FBI has been brought in these kind of cases to do investigation, to bring facts to light. But the Republican majority, which are males, refused that. President Trump refuses it. Kavanaugh, even though he says he wants to clear his name, he doesn't want particularly an FBI investigation. So tomorrow, this morning, they, by, again, just pure political power, who had the most votes, voted to advance Kavanaugh's nomination. So here in the United States, senators will soon have to make a decision without having many facts at all, without FBI talking to witnesses and that kind of thing. And so with this idea of the United States, having this long-term goal to be, the battle for democracy being fought out here, we really obviously are not doing the best that we could in this way or in the search for truth. Everything is being decided on just who has the most votes, who has the most power, instead of values and high-mindedness. Yes. So, and then we also have, as far as this idea of us advancing democracy, we only have 37% of Americans who vote in midterm elections. So this is terrible. So when things are being decided just by pure votes, and then we don't have Americans voting. So, we obviously need to bring in the second ray soul of the United States and do our meditative work and so forth. But in a very practical sense, people of consciousness also need to vote in these elections to bring about change. So I don't know if we're at this point yet where things are sad enough and bad enough that people will go to the polls and vote for change. I'm trying to find candidates of consciousness and high values to support, but I really am encouraging people to vote because they have no right to complain if they don't do that. So anyway, that's
It's a big thing.
a
It's a
lot of
big
people
thing.
may know these things, but if you don't, you may have your own challenges in your countries too. So anyway, I'm just putting this out there in this search
Yeah.
to bring in more truth, and anybody that has comments that they want to share.
We were on that broadcast for about 8 hours yesterday, Tui and I, and it was very illuminating. The great idea of democracy was hitting the actuality of the distortions of the phenomenal world. In other words, it really hit the illusions, the glamours, the mayas, and will it get through? That's the question. Will America, and this will affect the whole world really, will it really be able to light the way? That is the question. So, we're not done yet in the process, and I encourage everybody to work as subjectively as possible because this is affecting democracy all over the world. The rise of the dictators is coming now. And we have, I don't want to get too much into it, but, we have those who are now admiring dictatorial power. And it's a step back from the big step back from the internationalism which the hierarchy is promoting. So it's a very big deal. But in terms of our subject, you have a great idea, and it's found on very high levels. Monarchy, democracy, and I guess he calls it communism. They're found on different levels, but they are ideas. And they're descending, and they hit the inability of man to interpret them properly. And all the distortions and the terrible psychological conditions which prey upon the idea. It was fascinating to see some real psychopathology going on in that long session, as far as I'm concerned. So, in keeping with our subject, it is a great idea, but are people equal to it? And it will be decided here whether the U.S. can indeed light the way. And the Gemini personality of the United States is showing itself exactly in the widening polarization between the personal and the soul approach. So, work inwardly. We're doing that here in every way we can. And of course, the voting is absolutely essential. There's no way to do it. And it's just so irresponsible of people to what people have fought for and died for, the right of the individual person to have his or her say, and that's ignored. It's a terrible thing. But like you say, how bad and how sad does it have to get? My suspicion on this is badder and sadder. So let's see how we go.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's a big one. It's a big one, and obviously we're still, I have hopes. I know, I look at poor Jeff, he's torn. This thing is going to advance to the full Senate. And the question is, will people stand for party or for the welfare of the nation? All eyes are upon a few people who are the pivotal votes. And will we have a man who obviously faked it with total indignation? Or will we have a woman who was telling the truth? And, and let's just say the women are bringing in the new age. This is a battle between Venus and Mars. Venus always wins. It's the question of how long it will take.
Right.
So we'll do our best. We'll do our best. Okay.
Right.
Thank you, Libby. Thank you. Okay. Now we have Suzanne. We have Anne here. Okay, okay, let's see if I can rise a little further. Right. So Alex, she's very busy where she in England, where this whole battle is being fought out in a different way. And she says, I've got to go to a very important political meeting, and she's very active in that way. Okay. Now, I'll read what you said. Michael, I'm interested in the emotional involvement that happens with illusion. He talks about the fourth ray, especially descending from the plane of mind and clothing itself in emotion, and particularly liable to produce those fragmentary thoughts which people desire to act upon. In other words, you've just got a tiny bit of the truth and it's probably distorted already, then your emotions grab it and you really make a mess of the two together, and it's total distorted karma manas. The mind may first have to recognize one of the many states of illusion, but without any emotional attack. Well, that'd be for people like us. Okay, you know, we're going to study these 7 different types, and they can slip by without much effect because you have not empowered your distorted idea with the desire to make it happen. Once desire gets a hold of this whole thing, there's a real problem. Emotional attachment to the state of illusion, yes, it seems to be the real trap, and I agree with you there. Then the illusion becomes a form of experience, birthing a thought form of illusion. And I think, you know, for me, when the emotions grab hold of the fragmentary, distorted thought, I call it delusion. You know, it's a very powerful, active thing, and you tend to act out your delusions. As far as your illusion goes, you may act them out, you may not. Intuitional impulses to me are feelings from the soul. Well, they come, you know, in Agni Yoga, he talks about the high nature of feeling, and it comes from the heart. DK mostly emphasizes the solar plexus nature of feeling. But the true thing is, the soul is a much higher thing than consciousness upon the higher level of the mental plane. So intuitional impulses are really coming from the 4th level of the Buddhic plane. And then they come from the monadic plane. And they come, if I can just look at one of these charts, which Tuya created these to be a little more accurate if we could be. Okay, well, that's good stuff. 1, 2, 3. Take a look at this. Okay. So, or maybe I can say, well, what can I say? Usually, we say our intuitions come from about this level. But from the monadic level comes a higher form of intuition. And from the cosmic astral plane, a still higher form of intuition. And what are intuitions to the great logoi are coming here from the cosmic Buddhic plane. So intuition is a state of realization which seems to have no boundaries in the sense of our usual limitations. It comes from very, very high states, the lowest of which, and now I'll go to another place, the lowest of which is the 4th level of the Buddhic plane, and then in some somewhat distorted manner, the intuition descends into the egoic lotus, where we have some kind of transmission to the personality, but it's not the pure and true intuition. It is a stepping down of it. Now, if we build the Antakarana properly, maybe we don't have to have so much stepping down of the true idea into our mind and into our personality nature. So we just have to be careful about words like feelings and define them very carefully. You know, feelings from the soul, let's be as precise as we can about that word. Is it solar plexus? Is it heart? What actually do we mean? Remembering that the intuitional plane is above the plane of what we normally call soul. All right, interesting that, now here's Suzanne. Interesting that the 666 describes as the number of the beast adds up to 18 exactly, 18 lower subplanes exactly, and look, each one of those 6s is a Mars. basically 666 is the number of Mars, and the entire personality mobilized against, well, we're witnessing it right now in America. It's not just accidental. We have red advocates and blue advocates. Obviously, the blue is the indigo of the soul, and it's Jupiter in the heart center, and the red is the power of Mars. It's the solar plexus. It's the sixth ray. It's the personal beast, the king of beasts, the selfish beast. No matter how it is described, to veil it. Okay, I just followed that whole thing for hours and hours, and I saw, sincerity and drama calculated to override the truth. We can get into that, but that's another thing. Anyway, 666, the lower 18 subplanes, exactly so. Perhaps representing the three lower bodies at a relatively full stage. Well, each one is potent prior to the number one of the dominance of the personality. What are you going to say here? Dominance of something. Dominance of the personality. That is the total Mars rules the entire personality, and it's combined with the 6, 6, and 6. Now, what we really need is the 2, 2, 2, which is very Jupiterian, and let no one miscalculate regarding the seriousness of what's being played out. There is a battle going on between the tendencies of the previous solar system and the present solar system, and between the tendencies of the moon chain and the present chain. These things are all focusing now, and they have cosmic significance for the advancement of our solar system and the advancement of our planet as the base of the spine center of our solar logos. We may think we're making a political decision, and remember, we have to decide for Libra. Libra is getting stronger in the planetary horoscope. Its ruler, Venus, okay? And Venus is the first ruler and the major ruler of that sign for most people. Mars is in detriment in Libra. And all that stuff that you saw, people losing their temper and screaming out of their solar plexus and all that, they're scared to death of losing the solar plexus in favor of the heart. Now, none of the parties is perfect. And that third party predicted by the Tibetan, based upon the work of the new group of world servers, has not emerged yet. But I think we can see the difference between the indigo and the red. The red in this case is not first ray. It's the red of Mars representing the past, the solar plexus, and the only hope, here is that the sixth ray is on its way out for this cycle, and fewer 6th-ray souls will be born, and the 6th-ray approach at this time, because it is very needed, will pass out of the present battle. And then a new possibility of the high and the low meeting under the 7th ray will occur. Okay, so indeed the beast. King of beasts, Leo. Leo, the opposite of Aquarius. Aquarius is internationalism. Aquarius is the soul of America, the soul of Russia. And Leo is the personality of Russia and the ascending sign of our present very personal leadership. All right. Please say again, in what subplanes is the abstract mind? Well, here it is, and this is it. Very first abstract mind. And then the next two are called higher mind. And in a way, all these three above the dotted line are called higher mind, but the abstract mind are the lowest part of the spiritual triad, which will one day be the center of our own mental body, not just what the solar angel has provided, but our own mental body. That's found on the first sub-level, and the Antakarana, it's the first stop of the Antakarana. And in the fifth root race, sixth sub-race, which we're entering now, the abstract mind is to be cultivated. And I told the people this morning in the Science of Triangles discussion, I said, look, you really are cultivating your abstract mind when you consider the material that the Tibetan gave on the science of triangles. So anyway.
Can you make that bigger? Can you make that bigger, please, Michael? And Tui has got her hand up.
That was Sophie, our dog. She loves to snore. And Tuya keeps worrying that people might think it's her, but it's not. It's Sophie. Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
it's not.
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry. Well, I was thinking about while you were talking about this moment of Libra and this relationship with the Aries and Libra, which both have this very deep. I'm just because I'm in two places. Sorry, I put the other one down. That when we think about these last years, so everything is now at the moment meaningful, whatever happens in humanity. And this, like that we had in the hearing, woman and a man. And in that sense, opposing each other, and where this all is going to lead to. It's really interesting to look and at the whole issue. What are the themes in Libra? The relationship, the friendship, and then the higher marriage. So we know that America is and United States is playing very huge role in whole humanity and expressing about that where we are heading in the humanity. What is the greater choice deep within? And I think that this play now, this drama is going to be one of the key directions related to the coming 7 years. But then the other one, what I was thinking about illusions and again about the myths, what I'm always studying, because the myths are telling us the legends and telling about the greater things in human psyche. So where we find Medusa is expressing about the illusions, or altogether the Maya, glamour and illusions. And we have the story of Perseus, who is cutting the head of Gorgon or Medusa, and that is like behind the third decade of Aries. But then what is really interesting is that when we follow the myth of Hercules, in Capricorn myth, when Hercules is descending to hell, he is also meeting Medusa. And then, which is even more interesting, is that in when we look Taurus and the third decade of Taurus, there is Auriga, which the charioteer, and he holds the goat Capella, which was the one who was nurturing Zeus when Zeus was a child. And then in one point, Zeus is skinning the Capella, and that becomes a very magical thing. It is called auges. I don't know how you pronounce that, but it is like this kind of shield or animal skin, which is a status. And only Zeus and Athena were holding them or wearing them. And when Athena she put that on when she went to the war. And that skin had like thousands roars of dragons, and it was the protector, and it was ageless and immortal. So what does this all mean? I was thinking that there are certain times of the year where we have really potent times to fight against illusions. And as we already were thinking about the Libra Aries connection, and in Aries the third decade is about the killing the Medusa. And so that time when Sun is moving to that area of the third decade of Libra, it is directly related to that area where Perseus is able to kill the Medusa. But then in the sky in Taurus, behind the Taurus is Auriga, and Auriga has that amazing goat skin, Capella, and one of the stars is the Eye of Gorgon. I'm just thinking, could it be so that now when this drama has been taking on, and when the Sun is moving then in the spring to that area of the Taurus and the third decade time, so what's going to happen? I don't remember when we have this year the full moon. Does it happen at that time, Vesak time? Yeah, but anyway, this the whole half a year now, how these dramas are going to be played out is going to be very interesting.
This is a key decision-making point. You've got to turn off your.
Okay.
Turn off your. Yeah. Okay. So the decisions that are being made now, you know, every one of us has to rescue the soul. Every one of us is Perseus, and we rescue Andromeda from who is the soul, from another one of those beasts. And we were talking about the 666 beast, but there's the sea monster, which is all of these unconscious forces, which are so obvious in how people react to what is being said. There's just like a total personality identification. We, as Perseus, we have to kill illusion and liberate the soul. We kill illusion, as Tui was saying, by cutting off the head of the Medusa, and we do that by upholding the shield of the mind, because you have to look in the reflection on the shield to kill the Gorgon Medusa, and then you have to come and rescue the soul from the unconscious forces. Now we're going to see this being played out in the world during these next 7 years. So what's written, like Alice Bailey said, look, what's written in the sky, if all the books were to be lost and all the rest of it, the whole story of humanity's evolution is written in the sky, and the relationship of the constellations to each other and to the solar systems and planets. So look, we cannot separate anything in Master DK's teaching from anything else. It's all totally interrelated. And one more thing I wanted to say is, Tui, as you were talking about, a quotation from Master Moria came to me, and he said an amazing thing. He said, every legend is true. Think about that for a minute. Every legend is true. It's just come down to us in mythological form over even millions of years, but a great truth lies within it, and maybe even events. So, we're told how to overcome illusion in the skies. There are great illusory forces, right? Cetus, the sea monster, wants to devour Andromeda. There's the Hydra in the first degrees of Leo, first 10 degrees or so. It's the great sea snake It's the principle of illusion. And there's some, oh yeah, and then of course in Scorpio there is the snake, whose powers can be turned towards healing. There may be others. The meanings of the constellations, someday we'll have to have a discussion about all of those extra zodiacal constellations and what they mean to people born in different signs and so forth. But the way to conquer illusion is written in the skies. Okay.
Michael, I just one thing about that. You were talking about again this hearing, and when we think about Taurus, which whole idea is about the sex. So now we are talking about sexual harassment and all of these issues.
Yeah,
so now
yeah.
When you have now the election, is that going to be on the third decade? That is Scorpio time. Then
it's in the second decade of Scorpio, the election.
Okay.
Okay, but like one thing to encourage us: the planet Uranus, the planet of occultism, has moved into Taurus, which means that all of those areas that come under Taurus, vision, sensuality, sexuality, finance, all of that is going to undergo transformational stress. So we look forward to that. Okay, now I've got to be careful. Let's see, a few more things, and then we've got to get into our meditation. So yes, I think I answered that. Anne, please say again, in what subplane is the abstract mind? First subplane, is it the three higher of the mental plane? Though, yeah, that's higher mind, the planes of the first soul. Well, not even the first soul. It's we call it sometimes the angel of the presence of the soul on its own plane, but it's not really the soul on its own plane. The true plane for the soul is the Buddhic plane, and it's a great intuitive being. So anyway, soul is one of those words that you keep on using in different ways and always more expansive. Okay, and thanks, Jan. The heart is the big thing. Humanity is undergoing an attack from the Black Lodge right now, and the way that people protect themselves is through the opening of the heart. That's what Master Moria says. If you have your heart open, you cannot be obsessed. So remember that. The dark obsessors, the dark possessors are again looking to overcome the world the way they almost did in the time of the Second World War, and they have good people to work through at the moment. So keep the heart open. No obsession can come to you. The human constitution chart, can we print that out, Yvonne? Yeah, I'm going to leave that kind of to Tuya. She has in mind when and how she wants to distribute that. So, Tuya, do you have anything to say about your charts there? Well, you know, what I'm doing is kind of, don't forget, you got to turn on your, when you speak, chart like, what is it? Like this one.
Oh, yes. We have to check that everything is correct. Then we can give them out.
Okay, it won't be long. We tried to go into this as accurately as we could. You know that Keith Bailey from AUM has done charts of this nature. We tried to go into it even more deeply if we could. And remember, they're all Master DK's charts anyway. You know, we have no possession on them. We just try to elaborate in such a way that really helps people. So Tuya will give that some thought. Okay, so let's see. I think we got Yvonne, we got Suzanne, we got Anne. Is there anything else before we do our meditation? Okay. Good. Right. Thank you all. So let's get into it. But you're going to find the next one next week very interesting, about the 7 different methods of illusion. And you can measure yourself against that. It'll be our 89th program and our 28th academic reading. We're reading through the book just the way we are in our Reappearance of the Christ meditation. We're reading through the book Reappearance of the Christ, and for our Soul of Nations meditation, we're reading through the Destiny of the Nations. So this is a good way of not only rereading what the Tibetan has given and really subjecting it to intense scrutiny, but at the same time to apply it to the present world situations. So, we still have a few days before this vote occurs there. And I'm just, I'm telling you how I'm doing it. I'm really asking and visualizing that the true soul of America emerge. I had to laugh when the president compared himself to Abraham Lincoln. It won't be long before he's saying he's better than Lincoln. But anyway, I see the indigo soul of America and that great second-ray monad, Abraham Lincoln, first-ray soul, those kinds of principles coming from very high planes, from the atmic plane and beyond. They are the ones that have to win. All right, now our meditation. So, let's, I think, all of these glamours, they're just the same. They're based upon the same thing. They're based upon identifying with the beast, with the lower 666. There's God and the beast, and God saves the beast. It's, what can you do? It's very primitive, and one day occultism, spiritual occultism, has to win the day, the way Blavatsky says it will by the end of this century, and we have to help it along. Okay, so let's do this. So we'll have a silence, as we come together in a unity, in a synthesis. And we offer ourselves as an instrument to help clarify world glamour. And we can include in that, in a way, not only the condition on the astral plane on which we focus, but the mind, the glamours of the mind, and we'll include the mayas, It's all glamour. And we are part of that group that's going to get rid of it. Now we'll use our cross of divinity, the long arm cross in this case, and we say, as a soul, I work in light, and darkness cannot touch me. I take my stand within the light. I work, and from that point, I never move. And we see the lighted cross for each one of us as a meditator, and also for the whole group. The cross of protection, its dangerous work, the center of evil, of planetary evil, or one of the outposts of cosmic evil, is on the astral plane. So people on the other side don't like it when we do these meditations. Okay. Now we lift, we're going to make the three lights into one. We lift the light of matter up into the fourth level of the mental plane. This is especially the etheric light. And we focus the light of mind, logical, rational, clear, reasonable, clear thought. Vitalized, clear thought focused on the mental plane. And we bring down into this fusion of the two lesser lights the recognition of soul contact, perhaps visualized, well, however you want, but maybe above the head. Get a sense of the light of the soul. And we bring that soul light down and we merge it with the other two lights, and three lights are one. The soul-infused mind supported by the vitality of the lower subplanes. And out of this triple light, as one, will come our searchlight, which is both a means of detection, discovery, and a means of dissipation, an instrument of destruction when it comes to the glamours we have to encounter. And so, with a sense of that triple light being one light, visualize that. We say the mantra, the light is one, and in that light shall we see light. This is the light that turns the darkness into day. Now, the formula. And we say together, and as we say the words, we visualize the great searchlight turning on and extending out or in, turning its light upon the astral plane where at this time the major glamours are to be found. And so we say together, visualizing as we go, turning on that searchlight, the many individual beams forming one great beam. Radiance are we, and power. We stand forever with our hands stretched out, linking the heavens and the earth, the inner world of meaning, and the subtle world of glamour. We reach into the light and bring it down to meet the need. We reach into the silent place and bring from thence the gift of understanding. Thus, with the light, we work and turn the darkness into day. Now we invoke the spiritual will to strengthen our beam. The source of will is, of course, beyond any calculation, but we might say monad, atma, the jewel in the lotus, the will synthesis petal, the 3 sacrifice petals, and the other will, knowledge, will, love, the spiritual will. Through the head center and base of the spine, this is the will that wills that the purpose expressed as the plan will be manifested. So we need will in this work. And we say, with power upon its beam, the light is focused on the goal. So it strengthens our beam of detection, our beam of destruction, our goal to clarify the astral plane of its clouds, miasmas, veils, obstructions, darkened areas, and we have to destroy the glamours we encounter so that the great sun of truth and love can shine upon and through the astral plane. So we're going to work still with the glamour of personality, because what I've seen is that the personality of a nation is fighting with the soul of a nation. This is going on in many nations, and what it really means is that the personality of the entire human race at this time, when humanity can become not only the world disciple, but the world initiate, is fighting against the soul of humanity. And so that's when Christ said, I come to bring not peace, but the sword. That discrimination between what is the soul and what is just the little personal self has got to be clarified, and people can no longer get so enthusiastic about their own little personality, filling themselves with desires for its welfare as they conceive it, and ignoring the general welfare of their community, their nation, their humanity as a whole. That's being worked out right in front of us. The wrongful pursuit of personality power over other personalities. So our beam is strong, and we'll throw the light upon the glamour of personality, or we can call it mistaken identification as a personality, ignorance of the higher of the pairs of opposites. And so we say, the power of our united light prevents the appearance of the glamour of personality. The power of our united light negates the quality of the glamour of personality from affecting humanity. And the power of our united light destroys the life behind the glamour of personality. Now we're going to go into 5 minutes of silence, and you can deal with these 3 words of power in your own way, and you'll be visualizing the light, our beam, penetrating into the glamour and producing its weakening, its dissipation. And during these 5 minutes of silence, the work is seen to proceed because of our intensity of purpose. And so we begin. We have to realize that the personality is simply an instrument, and that excessive love of the little personal self prevents the larger picture from being seen and understood. Now, Leo is the sign of personality, but Leo moves along. Excuse me. And Leo eventually becomes the relinquished point, meaning that our eyes are not on our little personal self, and it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And the larger group and its soul, its sensitivity becomes more and more important. So we shrink the personality down to a point, and then even that point disappears. And the sun of truth, the sun of beauty, the sun of goodness, all shine upon the astral plane. And it becomes a conduit for the love of the soul and a unifying factor. But now we have to work in our own life to detect this very subtle thing, this glamour of personality. Remember Hercules, he had trouble with the lion because there were two entrances to the cave. And only when he blocked one entrance could the lion no longer escape. And then he could deal with it. So we withdraw our beam onto the mental plane. Three lights are one. We refocus upon the plane of mind, and we sound the Om 3 times, acknowledging the work, the triple work really, that we've contributed to just a little bit. Mind, emotions, and body. Okay, friends, tomorrow an important meditation at 5 o'clock GMT, because it's about the soul of nations. And that's where the battle is right now. How shall we see the emergence of the soul of our nation dominating its separative personality tendencies? Every national has to ask himself or herself that question. We must strengthen the soul of our nation, and then the culprits will be automatically rejected. And again, we will win over the Black Lodge, which is putting up its last-ditch fight. So 5 o'clock, and use your YouTube link. It'll be a broadcast, and we'll send this out to you. This one as soon as we can. Let your friends know. It probably we have to get it posted up on YouTube and on Makara, and you can review it if you wish, and or direct friends who may have missed it to be able to tune in, because these meditations have a kind of timeless quality. So thank you. Livia, Tui, and I wish you the very best, and let's keep plowing ahead, clearing up this glamorous mess in which we find ourselves working and walking. It can be done, it will be done, and by occult techniques getting stronger and stronger, we will manage. If not in this life, we'll do something, and then in the next, and in the next. Many blessings, and we'll see you later.